When I was a young man, about age 7 or maybe 8 or so, my dad came home with a Commodore 64. It was the very first computer I ever laid my hands on. One of the cool things about it was that it came with this whack of games. And something that I was just interested in right from the get-go was the way that you loaded those games up. You would essentially boot into the Commodore 64, like their system prompt was this big, like, light blue screen where you'd actually have to type the syntax in to load a game. It was like, load G.I. Joe, quote, star, quote, like if it made you feel like you were a programmer, right? Because there was no icons. You literally put the disc into the drive and away you go. A full disclosure, I'm not very good at Castlevania, so if you see me struggling, that's just how it goes. Anyway, so my dad brings home this computer, and up to this point, I've literally never laid my hands onto a computer. This is probably like 1992. I'm likely like age 6, age 7 or so. And it was one of the coolest things that I ever seen in my life. It was, there was G.I. Joe, there was Ghostbusters, there was all of these cool games that I had never played before in my life. And honestly, it's what got me into technology as a whole. Throughout the years, we got more and more types of computers, right? We went from Commodore 64 into Windows 95, and Windows 95 went into Windows 98, and all through my life, I've basically had the opportunity to have access to computers and technology. I'm grateful for those opportunities because otherwise I don't think I would have been able to do what I do with computers, which, I mean, it's not like some special thing. It's just something that I've kind of always had a knack for, right? I went from basic computer use into learning how computers tick, into learning, you know, how to fix them and things like that. And ultimately, it's what set me off in my career. Something that's always been in our house, obviously, has been the allowance, we'll say, of knowing how to use a computer. And it being okay to kind of test the waters a little bit. And that was no different as I got older and started using the internet. You know, we were one of the few houses in my hometown that had access to the internet, and at the time, you know, a 28 kbps modem, a dial-up modem. I still remember some of the first internet usage we ever had. We had the phone number in the modem incorrectly. Yes, this is an old-timey story about ancient days of yore. Bear with me, we are eventually getting to the point here. One of the first things that happened when we connected to the internet is my parents had the phone number that the modem had to dial incorrect. And so what was happening is it was making long distance phone calls every time we connected to the internet. So my parents' like phone bill was like through the roof. They're like, what did you guys do? We've always kind of had access to it. And it got me thinking about how different things are today. Didn't need that at all. How things are different today versus where they were back then, you know, the dawn of the internet, so to speak. Like, I realize the internet predates, you know, the 90s, but really rampant use of the internet and the World Wide Web and people making websites, etc., wasn't nearly as popular until probably 1994, 1995. As time went on, I remember when we got kind of that first access to the internet, that bat's gonna fly down and try and kill me. I know it. I gotta get off this freaking staircase. We kind of had unfiltered access to the internet, which, you know, thinking about it now is a completely different story than as it is like today. You know what I mean? Like today, unfiltered access to the internet is terrifying. You know, as a parent of children, it's the last thing that I would want my kids to have access to. We kind of hover over top and make sure that they're going to safe places and all of this other kind of stuff, right? Back then, 1994, I have access to the internet. I have access to people on the internet, and it is being encouraged, right? Because it's something that, like, oh, you know, why don't you try setting up a website? That's really cool. It was really cool. The thing is, though, is that it was unbelievably unsafe, right? We just didn't realize it at the time because it was this kind of new way of using a computer. We've used a computer for years up to this point. It's no different, really. It's just, you know, chat rooms, just people of your own age and stuff. didn't dawn on us the concept of internet safety. And now that we're kind of at the stage that we are at, can I get this guy from here? Now that we're at the stage that we are at, we do know the dangers of it. And I mean, obviously the internet is a little bit of a different place than compared to where it was in 1994. But now that we're kind of here, oops. I also think about how we grew up in that environment. We kind of know how to be a little bit more safe. You know, people in my generation, like the millennial era, 80s kids, 90s kids kind of thing, we kind of developed the rule set for safe browsing on the internet, which is really interesting to think about because that didn't exist back then. There was no concept of like stranger danger existed, but it wasn't in the sense of like someone's going to talk to you in a chat room and then find out where you live, and then all of a sudden you're going to be the next kid on the back of a milk carton, right? It's really funny to me to think about kind of what access. Let me give you an example. So I remember at Christmas one year, we got a book. It was kind of like how to use the internet for dummies. There's actually two books that we created: how to use the internet for dummies, and then how to build websites in HTML. I wish I would have stuck with the HTML one because I think that would have really benefited me in the long run. Oh no. I think that would have benefited me in the long run because it was literally like the dawn of HTML and building websites. And that's just was such a cool concept. It was unheard of, right? I would tell people at school like, oh, I built a website today. And they're like, what's a website? What is that? And so you kind of had this, it was this opportunity where you knew stuff that other people had no clue was even a thing. Ah, dang it. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to play this while I was doing this talk, but it is what it is. It was one of those things where you would be able to go to school and be like, oh, I built a website. Nobody would actually even know what that means, right? Nobody would know what a website is or what you do with a website. And then you get to teach them like, oh, I get to create this page on the internet that I get to tell people my thoughts and ideas and how cool Castlevania is. We got these books. So we got the HTML book, and then we got the how to use the internet kind of, and it was kind of like a for dummies book, but it wasn't for dummies. It was just like different places you can go on the internet and what you can do. And one of them was like a collection of chat rooms. I remember my parents being like, oh, look, chat rooms. You can go and talk to people from around the world. This is really cool. And encouraging us as children to go into chat rooms, right? And it was innocent, right? Because they had no clue about like what this world was and how this stuff works and why it probably is a not good idea for an 8-year-old to go into a chat room full of 40-year-olds on the internet. But again, the internet then didn't feel so like, you know, the feeling you get when you walk down a dark alley at night? It's not comfortable, but you kind of do it because, dang it. You kind of do it because you have to kind of thing. That was kind of the way it feels being on the internet, like thinking about that now, right? Like when I'm on the internet and I'm talking to people, that's how I feel. It's like an uncomfortable feeling and I don't really like it. But back then it was just like, yeah, let's talk to people from different parts of the world. How cool. I think about like that and how that hardened us as people. I was talking about this on my stream the other day as well. The concept of like stuff that we saw as kids when our parents weren't around. Like those are the things our parents were encouraging, right? However, there was different websites out there that were like the shock value websites. That was kind of a big thing in the like early 2000s. Your friend would be like, oh, I found this new recipe for lemonade. Maybe you should check out this website. It's called Lemon Party. Right? And those of us who have been around the internet for a long time, we know exactly what that is. It was kind of like earning your stripes, so to speak. We're hardened because of that. And I was thinking about like security training, right? One of the things that we do at my workplace is like cybersecurity training and like teaching people how to use the internet in a safe way, the importance of not clicking links in an email. And I was thinking about like, how did I learn how to do this stuff, right? And that's how I learned. I learned the hard way. I was thinking about how cool it would be to have like a cybersecurity training course where it's basically the internet from the 90s. Your friend sends you a link to tell you about something cool that's on there, but it's all designed about like teaching you how to be safe on the internet and like what you should and shouldn't do, etc. The concept of like early internet and how things have changed so drastically since then. And I mean, obviously I'm appreciative for it. Like I said, I have a family with small children. The last thing I want is to subject them to anything along those lines that would be you know, really, really inappropriate. And so I'm glad that kind of concept of the internet isn't nearly as prevalent as it once was. I guess I wanted just to create a video to tell a story about how funny it is that the world has changed to a degree where once upon a time we used to encourage people to jump into a chat room as young children to talk with people around the world, to where we are now, where it's like, no, don't go into that chat room. That's where bad people hang out. You don't want to hang out in there. You're gonna have a bad time. Maybe the concept from a dad advice point of view is to, you know, be safe when you're on the internet. The concept of internet security training as a 90s internet thing, I think would be one of the most hilarious things on the planet. I would happily take that course. I should make one and see if I could sell it, because I really think that people of this era would get a pretty good kick out of the concept of it, right? Because you had to be terrified of literally anything that anyone sent you. Here's another story to kind of close this off with. Once upon a time, I was playing Duke Nukem 3D, okay? And so one of my friends at the time had sent me a link to a program that was apparently going to help me become a better Duke Nukem 3D online player. They sent me this link. They were like, yeah. So if you install this program, it'll help make sure that when Duke picks up weapons that he always has full ammo or something like that. I download this program because it's from my friend. Why wouldn't I trust it, right? And it installs on my computer, and I'm like, that's weird. It didn't do anything. It just launched and nothing happened. He's like, oh, that's weird. That shouldn't have happened. Let me see if I can make it work. And so from his side, he does something, and all of a sudden my CD tray opens up on my computer. And I'm like, that's weird. My CD tray opened up. He's like, yeah, isn't that awesome? I got you to install this thing on your computer that lets me open up your CD tray from my computer. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then I never thought about it again, right? Until like 6 months later, I get this random Windows message on my computer that's like, hey, you shouldn't have these ports open on your computer. Someone could get in and cause some trouble. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. It was like, don't you want to know how I'm doing this? And I thought it was my friend. I thought this was my friend that was doing this. And so it's like, very funny name of friend, very, very funny Greg, whatever your name is, right? And they're like, no, this is blanky blank from America. I'm gonna break your computer now. And I was like, at first I kind of didn't understand what it was. And then all of a sudden my computer just locked up. It just completely locked up. I restarted the computer, and wouldn't you know it, it wouldn't boot back up again. My dad had to take this into the computer shop and get this stupid thing fixed. Well, what ended up happening was the system files on my freaking Windows directory got deleted. My Windows 98 system files got deleted. What happened was there's this program, I don't remember the name of it anymore. If somebody is watching the video and you remember the name of this program in the 90s that people would trick you, I remember the icon had like a torch on it. It was like blue and it had like a torch on it. If someone had this program and they got you to install it, well, what ended up happening is it wasn't just my friend that had access to the computer. It was literally anybody on the internet had access to my computer. And so they could just jump in, they could look at what's on my computer, they could mess with my files, they could watch what was on my screen, they could pop up system messages. It was really terrifying, but I mean, I had no idea something like that even existed at the time. Ridiculous. Just the world of the internet back then, absolutely ridiculous. I think I've been hardened because of it. Ultimately, my security training is better because of it, and I have a lot to thank for awful 90s internet experiences. Be safe on the internet. Don't let your kids go in chat rooms in the 90s. That's your dad advice of the day. If you enjoyed this video and you like these kinds of videos, there's more on the channel. They're gonna pop up on the screen. Feel free to click one of them. And thanks for just hanging out and listening to me ramble a little bit. I do appreciate you being here. We'll see you on the next one. Okay, so long, everyone. Have a great one.